Out Front with Vince Noble, the weekly podcast that gives emerging leaders and career transitioning individuals the information and inspiration to thrive and become their best. Available wherever you download or listen to your podcasts.
There is a new weapon in the fight against COVID-19. The Valoro Company provides NASA-based active pure technology air purifiers that rapidly eliminate 99.9% of airborne SARS-CoV-2 viruses from your immediate environment. This amazing advanced technology filtering system was first developed for use by the NASA Space Shuttle program, and now to help meet the curable demand of the global pandemic crises. This amazing technology is made available at affordable pricing to the general public for your home or place of business use. For more information, contact US Asia OT and Majestics LLC at 689-222-8900 or 312-200-0109. Or email subject information@usasiaonlinetrade@gmail.com.
Welcome to this episode of the Out Front Podcast with host Vince Noble, the podcast that gives emerging leaders and career transitioning individuals the information and inspiration to thrive and become their best. For sponsorship and advertisement opportunities, please contact info@nobleresolutions.com. And now, your host, Vince Noble.
I want to acknowledge each and every one of you who is stepping into your authentic power today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Out Front Podcast, the show that gives emerging leaders and career transitioning individuals the information and inspiration to thrive and become their best. I am your host, Vince Noble. In this episode, we'll get a chance to talk today with Mr. Marcus Muhammad. We'll get a chance to discuss his newly published book, Transforming Pain to Passion, Thriving with HIV, and so much more. As always, before we get started with these extraordinary conversations, I want to say, as much as I love how intellectually stimulating they are meant to do more than pique our intellect. They are meant to drive us into meaningful action. So as you listen, our guests are not solely on this show to promote themselves, their services, or products, however, in large part, to promote or to provide significant insight and actionable steps to encourage you and engage you, thereby helping to shift you from one level to the next. So I encourage you to listen and to think about how you, in some way, may be positively impacted. No matter who you are, it is my greatest hope that you find tremendous value in today's episode. We have a lot to unpack in this episode, so let's go. Welcome to the show today, Marcus.
Peace. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm very, very honored and delighted to be here today. And first off, I just want to thank you, for opening up your platform to seeing value in my story, to taking time out of your schedule so that way we can dialogue with one another and that I can share my story in hopes to help inspire and uplift individuals throughout the world. So I'm very honored. I definitely want to give all the glory, all the thanks to God, for his love and for using us as people to help and to inspire other people to allow us to get back onto the right track of life, which is, living the best life we can and, submitting to him and, living in prosperity as, the Christ said, living in abundance. And so I'm very honored and I thank you for this wonderful podcast that you're hosting.
Again, welcome to the show today. And it is indeed a pleasure to have you come and spend some of your time with us and share a part of your remarkable story of resiliency. And the fact of the matter is, Marcus, HIV and AIDS pandemic is still a pervasive global concern, on top of a current COVID pandemic, with nearly 40 million people with the disease. And so I believe, there is still a lot of individual perceptions, if you will, that need to change. The disease may not always become contracted in the way that many individuals perceive it. And so it is not always in the way of the person's direct at risk behavior, if you will. So, Marcus, I really applaud you for your courage to, write this remarkable book and, in fact, share a part of your story. And quite frankly, to help continue educate and bring awareness to the subject. One of the things I often say quite frequently is that, your story is your story. And, you will never know how the world will respond to your story until you tell your story. But you have to be willing to tell your story. Because I happen to believe there's healing in your story. There's deliverance in your story. I believe there's miracles still in your story. And so your story may be the story that helped change the trajectory of someone's life for the rest of their life. But you have to be willing to have the courage and willingness to tell your story. So Marcus, listen, tell us a little bit about yourself, your early childhood, what was your influences like, and what has brought you to the work you so passionately do today?
Well, just in response to what you just said and to answer your question, just the introduction of your question in itself, about your story being your story, and there's healing in your story and the power of the story. And, for me, I had to learn that, you know what I mean? I always desired, even at 6, 7, 8 years old, to share my story. Like I literally remember sitting in the back seat of my mother's car on the way to doctor's appointments and visualizing myself. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but I just, would take joy in seeing myself, speaking to individuals, speaking to crowds of people, and, teaching on healing and helping individuals with HIV and other diseases. However, growing up, I always thought that I would first have to be completely healed. Like I have to go get tested, and for the test to say negative, for me to really see value, not for me to see value, but for others to see value in my story and for it to really be able to aid and assist others. I thought that the story that I have right now wouldn't be that beneficial, So I just wanted to just, say that what you just said there just really stuck out to me and touched me, because there's truly is power in one sharing their story. So just a little bit about, me and what I'm doing today and who I'm striving to become. It all, obviously starts from birth. God plans and he's the best of planners. But just the experiences that I had experienced, the environment which I was around, growing up with this disease made me think and feel a certain way about myself, in a way to where I truly desired to just want to live. Like, some people may want to grow up to be this, and that. And my goal was to want to live and want to help others live, abundance, live in abundance and live a prosperous and a healthy lifestyle. I desire to have a family and to have children because growing up, I didn't know. And my mother wouldn't tell me these things like, oh, you may not have children, but, going to the doctors very often, it just would, something was like, okay, something's not right. And then when the doctors would really educate me on, as I grew older, on HIV and the way it spread it, I said, man, I probably won't really have a normal lifestyle. So with me having those, facing that type of adversity at a young age, it always kind of made me have the certain mindset that, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a healer, I want to be a scientist, I want to develop care, I'm going to heal from this, and I'm going to help others do the same thing. And I would always envision others going through similar situations or something. And I would see, who has probably, had the most or the heaviest impact on my life that I know, other than my mother, is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Just to see his works and to see his love that he has presented to our people and to the world. And I said, you know what, I want to be great like him. And I always envisioned being great, speaking similar to what he's doing, but, healing individuals that have physical illnesses or even spiritual challenges or burdens that they have. And so growing up around all that and, the faith that my mother had instilled in me, made me to think a certain way. So, and as I grew up, it was challenging, definitely was challenging, and I didn't know how I would do it, but I kept going. I would go to little business seminars, networking events, and read books. I kept hearing people say, "Share your story." Not to me, but just how, if you want to be like a motivational speaker, you want to reach people, you want to help people, the importance of sharing your story and the value in it. And I had the spirit come upon me like, it was like a voice from within, like, share your story. It's time. It's time. It's time. And it was 2018. It's just all these different instances kept lining up. And that's one day I got with my wife, and I said, you know what? I said, I think it's time to share my story. You know what I mean? It's time. And the Spirit of God just dwelled upon me, and He guided me to do it. And like you said, since when I did it, it was as if, like you said, it was healing. It was healing me. Because I felt I can feel me connecting to other individuals, because it's not about me. It's not particularly about what I'm going through. It's about sharing my experience to other individuals that may need help or may need something that's going to inspire them. And I can show, well, this is how God is using me. And they may say, whoa, now I can be used in a certain way.
Yes. So Marcus, you talk in the book about, again, the fact that you were born with the HIV virus. And again, I know you talk a little bit about how your mother kind of would tell you certain do's and don'ts when you were very young. And she would tell you things like, in particular, don't be kissing little girls and that sort of thing. However, she never directly told you then. However, how old were you exactly when you reached the realization that you, in fact, was born with the HIV virus? And sort of what was your first reaction, but more importantly, what was everyone else's reaction and the support system and processes like moving into that reality?
Well, yes, it was when I was 6 is when she first told me. Like, that's my earliest memory of, knowing something was up, and she said that I had a blood infection. And she said she deliberately didn't tell me HIV because, one, I may have not understood it. And children go around talking about stuff. And I actually remember telling children, I got a blood infection, and they probably would look at me like, what's this guy talking about? So she deliberately didn't tell me that I had HIV because of that fact.
Right.
But she said before then, she knew that I knew something was wrong because I would go to the doctors often and I would question her about it. I can't remember the exact age I was when I first knew the terminology, that it was HIV. It may have been 9 or 10. I think it was around the time, 8 or 9 or somewhere around the time when I, before we had moved down to North Carolina. I think I have more memories of it then than I do now. Not that than I do now, than I did when I was younger, of it being HIV instead of an infection in my blood, because that's what you said, you had an infection in your blood. Right. But the support system, I would say, was good. It was different at times because obviously this was a condition that was given to me, which I really at the time didn't have any control over. I was born with it. And so, my mother was very supportive, and she would be very emotional at times as well about it, and, my siblings were supportive, and all my siblings didn't know at the time. They do now. But only a few of them, I think only my older siblings knew, and it wasn't something that we talked about very often. It just would be like if I would get sick or something was to happen, because, they would forget sometimes, you know what I mean? Like on their day-to-day life, laughing, playing, arguing, fighting, you know what I mean? We just will forget. But then if I get cut or get in an accident or get sick, then all of a sudden, oh my God, we forgot about this. So the support system was, pretty good. I would say for the most part, my mom was very supportive. She spoke very positively about me, about the disease. Always say, you're going to get married, you're going to live a long life. And in my mind, I really, I desired, to live a very long life. I said, man, I want to live longer than 70, 80 years. You know what I mean? And I still, hold true to that to this day. And, they were telling my mother, I probably won't live that long. And if I did, because, a lot of children, I guess, who were born with it, or were coming ill and weren't making it. Some of the children were dying at a young age or getting AIDS, and so they thought that I would fall in that category. But
Right.
in the Quran, it talks about it's a surah, or not a surah, ayat. It says that they plan and God also plans, and God is the best of planners.
Absolutely.
And so the doctors at times may give us knowledge and information, even to this day. And my mother, she looked to a higher knowledge, and she prevailed. So that's just kind of how it was, So I would say the support system was great. Like I said, a lot of people didn't know. My mother didn't tell a lot of, and she didn't even tell like my aunts and uncles and stuff. Only individuals I knew was some of those on my biological side and my close siblings who I grew up with.
Mm-hmm. So Marcus, to that point, I mean, obviously, there's been a great deal of revolutionary change in terms of, improved and available medications over the past, 35 years. In the early stages of the virus, there wasn't a great deal of hope, as you spoke to, in terms of the diagnosis. What is it like to live with HIV today versus over the past 27 years? What has been some of the changes or challenges in terms of the long-term health care?
Well, from my understanding, and most of what I will speak on is just based off experience and based off paraphrasing from individuals that I've met or scientists or doctors from that era. But just from studying, and looking at history, when this virus first came out, the doctors and the scientists who were striving to treat it and striving to find cures for it truly didn't understand what it was, And sometimes when I explain it to people, like when I started studying, when I went to college and I had my biology class and we came up on the subject of the immune system. And so I started studying the T cells and the B cells, which are cells in your immune system that are produced from your bone marrow, and then some are produced from I think it's called your thymus gland in your body, and they actually are the cells that fight off infections. And typically, when one gets sick with a cold or some kind of flu or some kind of virus, what happens is the B cells are like the body's first defense mechanism. They take pictures of these cells, and they take pictures so they can report over to the T cells, and then T cells then start to reproduce themselves, or no, they go to attack the cells, the agents or the viruses that is now entering into the body. But each one of these viruses typically have a receptor, and so then once a T cell binds to the receptor, it can destroy. It puts enzymes inside of the virus, and it can destroy. So then now that T cell makes reproductions of itself, because each T cell has different keys. So now it makes the same reproduction of the one that killed it, so that way it can match all the receptors. With HIV, is very similar. However, when one T cell finds an HIV virus and binds it to it and kills it, the HIV virus also is reproducing itself to different strains. So by the time the T cell reproduces itself to now fight off this virus, the HIV has multiplied itself exponentially higher than what the T cell has multiplied itself. So now it has to the immune system has to restart over and over again. And on top of that, the HIV cell can go attack a T cell, and it can look like it's a T cell to other cells in your body, but it's really a T cell, or HIV posing as a T cell, like an agent inside of a body, and then it's affecting the other cells. So it was really something very new. And to me, I was like, man, this is literally a genius disease. Like, it's literally a genius disease. Any other cold or even flus, if one has a strong immune system and they get the flu, they don't need medication. The body can fight it off naturally. The flu is just a chronic, it's a chronic, I don't want to say chronic, but it's it can become something that's very, infectious if you don't, if your body isn't to the, if it hasn't been properly cared for. It can basically take somebody out, because people do die from the flu. But if a person's healthy and they get the flu, then their body can fight it off. You know what I mean? The HIV is just always changing. So then they just didn't know what it was, you know what I mean? And so then when they would try to find these different medications, then it's some of the medications were working and some weren't working, and the ones that were working had these very extreme side effects, and so it was global pandemic. And I don't want to compare it to the coronavirus, but because we weren't sheltered in place, but it's only because HIV wasn't spread airborne. If it was spread airborne, then it would probably have been something similar. But it was like, man, this person has HIV. Let me get away from this person. Like we know today, if somebody walks up to us like, yeah, I just got tested for COVID, I'm like, all right, great. Can you back up 6 feet? I love you, but I don't want you close to me. That's how it was when someone contracted AIDS and HIV back then. It was like, oh, he got AIDS. Oh my God, I can't be with her. I can't be with him. And so today they have many medications, and they call these medications antivirals. Some individuals may take 1 or 2 pills. Some individuals may take 6 or 7 pills. It all depends on the condition of their immune system and the progression of the HIV virus. However, even these antivirals aren't perfected. So basically they are made and created to keep the virus at bay, but it doesn't eliminate the virus from your body, because this is a retrovirus. I mean, it can be asleep, but it's still alive in your system. It's just not destroying your cells. However, even these antivirals, and I'm not talking negative, but it's just the reality, have very strong side effects. And that's one of the reasons why I chose not to take them. Not only because of the side effects, like if I had no other alternative, I would do that. But it's, and I know we'll probably get into that a little later, but I'm working on other healing methods. But the medications are, more advanced, more improved than they were 20 or 30 years ago. Like I said, they still do have certain side effects. They're very strong. However, they don't eliminate the virus, and I do believe that there are cures for it, and there will be a cure in the future. I believe they actually have one already, because I'm like, if you can do all this with a pill, like it should be no way that you can not take this virus out. That should be something that can be done, is to actually eliminate this from someone's body. If you can basically keep it asleep, you know what I mean? Right. So that's my viewpoint. That's my knowledge from it, my experience.
So Marcus, you're married with children, beautiful family, I may add. I have to ask, how did you first begin to navigate, that conversation with your now wife, who then you were attempting to date?
So, great question. So I went over it first in my head over and over again. And I was really confident, because when I had made in my mind that, I said, this is the one I really want to spend the rest of my life with. And in my heart, I knew she had already felt the same way about me. And I said, I truly in my heart believe she loves me. And if she loves me, if I educate her and explain to her everything that happened, she most likely will accept me. So I was really confident about it.
Right.
But at the same time, I was like, man, as I got closer and closer to the time I wanted to tell her, I was like, man, what if she be like, you know what? I do love you, but, I'm not about to risk myself for this. Or, I don't want to, I really want to have children. I don't want to risk them having it. You know what I mean? Or I don't want to be concerned about your health, So other factors started to come in play. And I said, well, I gotta, if this is someone I want to spend the rest of my life with, I only have one option, is to tell her, if I walk away, I'll never know, but if I, be straightforward and just explain to her everything that happened, explain to her the history of it, the education, how I was born with it, how if I take care of myself properly, most likely she will not catch it. Our children won't have it. Then most likely I'll have a chance. And so that's why I kept envisioning it in my mind over and over again. And then we got to the time where we sat down to talk and said, hey, look, I have something very important I would like to talk to you about. And I discussed my mother, how she caught it and how I caught it, how I was born with it, and how if I took care of myself and if I was undetectable, then, she wouldn't catch it. She wouldn't get it. Most likely it's like they say it's impossible. Some scientists say it's 0.005% or something. It's like very unlikely for one to catch it through sexual intercourse if that person is undetectable. And even if that person was to catch it, it's even, nowadays, mother can have it and the child most likely won't have it if the mother is taking care of herself or if she's on medicine. So that's just my experience with that.
Mm-hmm. So again, you're married, and then how did, the subject of, children with an HIV negative wife come into play? I'm sure, the subject in and of itself came with a tremendous amount of legitimate concerns. How did you guys sort of navigate the complexities of what could have, again, very well been a scary and dangerous situation or outcome?
Well, we definitely first and foremost put our faith in God. We truly believe that He would bless us, and we truly believe that we called on Him, that He works out miracles. And I remember when I first told my wife, she looked at me and said, I know we're going to be great, and we're going to find the cure for this. And so when we were looking to have children, I made sure my health was good. And then even after we were in the process of that planning, my wife got tested as well. And we made sure she was good. So that way, when we have the child, the child wouldn't have it because my wife is not going to have it and the child wouldn't have it. And so, so it definitely was a concern, it wasn't something that we definitely just like, all right, we're going to do this. We definitely had to, look into this and just really put it into prayer. But because of our education, because of our love for God, our love for one another, and, me striving to take care of myself, we were able to go through with it. And praise be to God, she doesn't have it. Both my children don't have it, and a lot of individuals think that because one has HIV or AIDS, that their significant other will have it or the children will have it. That's not likely the case. Just because I was born with it, it doesn't mean that other individuals have to be born with it.
Mm-hmm.
It is possible, but very unlikely if the person knows of the status and is taking care of themselves.
Mm-hmm. So is there ever a time you get sort of paranoid about passing it on to a family member in the home or some other way to a person who's not HIV positive? What are some of the protocols in the home you sort of implement?
So when I was younger, I would say yes to that. When we were younger, I'm still very careful and cautious the way I move, but I was a lot more concerned and cautious and thoughtful when I was younger, and just, worried because, I'm sleeping in the same room with my brothers, we're brushing our teeth, we're getting dressed together, we're playing together, and I'm like, back then, the education and the understanding of HIV wasn't what it was now. And so in my mind, saliva, my mother tells me not to kiss a child, but kiss another girl when I'm growing up as a child, 10, 11, 12 years old. I'm thinking it's in my saliva, you know what I mean? I knew it was in my blood because the doctors made it clear that blood and sexual intercourse is the way for it to spread. So I'm like, let me not cut myself around. Let me not get cut or something or get in an accident around my brothers, because then if they touch my blood, they might have it. So right. We kind of had that mindset. Then I had to put my toothbrush up in a different area because I don't want them to use my toothbrush because sometimes your gums may bleed, or if they put my toothbrush in their mouth, they may get it. Or if I drink after them and they're sick, then I might get sick, so it was just a lot of caution, you know what I mean? And there was a lot of protecting other people, but also protecting myself because I don't want no one else to get it, but then I don't want to be sick. My mom would be like, if somebody else sick, they got to sleep in another room. Like, if someone else sick, don't, because she was like, I don't want, like, it was one time I remember a nurse came in to, draw my blood. A nurse came in, sneezed and coughed. My mom was like, I'm sorry, you're going to have a request for another nurse. And she hurt the nurse feelings. And then another doctor came, my mom got emotional. She said, I'm sorry, I just can't take any chances. She started crying, was like, I can't take any chances with him. Right. I do not want him to get sick because if he gets sick, it's harder for him to heal versus another person, and so it was just me being very, very cautious growing up. Now, as an adult, we know that one, is not in the saliva. And two, obviously, I'm not bleeding, every day. So it's like, even if I'm bleeding, it's like my children are sitting right next to me, touching my blood. It's typically when you're mixing someone else's blood, like when it was spread through drugs because of the blood being inside of the needle. And so some of that blood may have not been touching air. And so when they now use that same injection, or a dirty needle or unclean needle, then now that person has it, and through sexual intercourse, it was spread more through sexual intercourse when one would have maybe some kind of infection or STD, And so here at home, obviously my wife and I use our own toothbrushes, right. For kissing, I don't have a cut in my mouth, so I'm fine. I mean, there were times in the past when I would first get married, you know, where we would be concerned, like when we were planning to have children, we would really be like, all right, we got to pray that this doesn't happen, or children don't get it, or if one of my children are sick, or if she was sick, you know, they would really try to, my wife would really try to keep them away, or she would try to stay away. And it's still, my wife still kind of does that today. Like if she's sick or the children's sick, she's like, I don't want Marcus to get sick. But I literally, like, the way I am now and who I'm developing to, like, it literally doesn't even concern me no more. You know what I mean? Because I believe that the mind is over the body. You know what I mean? And if my mind is in a certain place and I'm aligned with God and I'm eating the right foods, I'm taking care of my mind and I'm taking care of my body, that, not saying I can sit around the flu or coronavirus and not get it, but it's more unlikely for me to even get sick now because of the way that I move. And sometimes I feel like with you being worried and concerned and being so cautious of your health, and you're like, oh, let me not go near this person, like, you're drawing the illness to you. I mean, you got to be smart. I'm not saying go clean up someone else's vomit or blood, you know, or lay in the bed with someone that's sick. But in my mind, I've learned to not fear that, to not be so cautious of it or concerned about it to allow it to worry me, you know. So today I'm not really concerned about passing it. Like, we're still, you know, because of the way I was raised, because I grew up with it, I'm very prepared and very organized with the way I move. So it's developed me to the point where it's natural for me to kind of how I am around my wife, how I am around my children, to where if something was to happen, something's natural to the point where I'm moving respectfully for them and me, in protection of me and them. But at the same time, it's not fair, and it's not me being super concerned about it. So that's just kind of how it is now.
Right. So, Marcus, to your point, am I right to assume you are not on a lot of medications? You sort of, as you said, implementing a very restrictive and disciplined diet. What exactly is your medication regimen like and your diet like?
Well, right now, I won't say I'm not on any medication, because my medication is a social guy.
Right.
So, you know, definitely he's the first medication. My prescription every night, every morning, and throughout my day is, you know, praying and really just having the right mindset, the right thoughts, aligning myself up with him. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that God has placed inside of every human being its own hospital. And if we align ourselves with the Creator, you know, we think right and eat right and do right, then we start to activate our own healing system within our own bodies. You know, and he talks about, you know, in the Bible and in the Quran, they don't talk about any hospitals. You don't hear anything about a hospital. You don't hear anything about prescription medications. But how is it that all these prophets like Noah and Methuselah and great men were able to live 900 or something years old? It's because of the way that they live, the thoughts that they thought, you know, the actions that they did. They knew how to take care of themselves. They knew how to take care of their bodies. They knew the science of the food. And so I started to think, you know, because I used to take medication for years. And like I said, who I am today, I had to grow into this person, and I'm even growing and learning more each and every day and developing into I believe, a more spiritual and greater person that God is going to help, you know, in the God's name that God is going to use. And, you know, so what I learned is that earlier I mentioned that this virus is like a genius, and it is, you know, but then you got to ask yourself, well, what's a genius to God? You know what I mean? The all-knowing, the all-seeing, the all-powerful.
Absolutely.
And if we truly do have healing powers in our bodies, you know, I know you always hear about these, you know, spiritual teachers or, you know, preachers, or, you know, the minister is one of them, because he talks a lot about healing. You know, Jesus said he came to give us life and give it to us more abundantly. Well, if we are following the law of Jesus and his teaching and his indoctrination that he gave upon us, and we're reading the Bible as if it's helping us today, or the Quran, or whatever holy books that we read, then we should be healing. You know what I mean? And so, so now I stopped taking the medications, because I said I truly can't really be healed from God if I'm, you know, taking these medications. And I truly believe that the ears are cured. Now, it could be some kind of medication I'll take, or it could be a plant or herb, you know, or it could be me just eating the right foods. Because so one thing I do is I only eat once a day. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad has a book called How to Eat to Live. One of the most impactful books that I've read. It's probably one of the first books I read even though I was raised in a nation. You know, I read a lot of books growing up, but I don't think How to Eat to Live was one of them. So I think I first read How to Eat to Live when I was 18 years old. And I had always knew that. I felt as if I could live long, like 100 more years or so. I always thought that. I didn't know that in How to Eat to Live, the Most High Elijah Muhammad taught that if you ate 1 meal a day and fast 2 or 3 days each month, one could live 140, 150 years. I thought, how is that possible? You know, and he was like, the way that we eat and the way that we do things is based off of what we've been taught from a Western society point of view.
Absolutely.
And so, and he starts teaching on the stomach and how the digestive system works, and how you 1 meal a day to clean out your body, you know, give your stomach more time to rest. He was like, we're sending ourselves to the grave by the foods we eat and how often we eat them. And then he goes to eating 1 meal a day or to 1 meal every other day, and how the less that we do eat, as long as we're not harming ourselves, you know, the less we do eat, the more healthy it is for our body, because our body is now on a natural detox. You know what I mean? And then he starts talking about how some chronic diseases can be healed from just eating 1 meal a day, 1 meal every other day. And then he says not only eating the 1 meal a day, but thinking the right thoughts. Because he says that the brain operates very similar to how the digestive system operates. He said what you feed it is how it'll act. You know, how it'll function. It functions based off what you feed it. So if you're feeding it good food, it's going to operate good. If you're feeding it bad, filthy food, it's going to operate bad. And so then we got to think about, well, what am I putting in my mind each and every day? You know, and so that's my medicine right now. Just thinking the right thoughts, you know, making the right decisions, eating the right foods, you know, working out, you know, trying to commune with nature, read, you know, these holy books, and just doing what I'm doing now, striving to help people by sharing my story. And through that, I believe God will heal me or lead me to what the cure, to a real cure out here.
Absolutely. So it's really of the mindset. Let good food be your medicine, if you will.
Yes, sir. I do believe there's a cure called but it's an alpha interferon. I took this supplement when I was a child, from I think around 2 years old up until I was like 8 or 9. And while I took that, I don't want to say I never got sick. I mean, there were probably times I got sick, but it was very unlikely that I would be sick. I was going to the doctors. I was undetectable. My CD4 count was high. CD4 is your T cell count. You want that number to be high because that determines the strength of your immune system. And so I took that for years, and the doctors thought, medical doctors, physicians thought that I was taking the antivirals. So they were like, man, they wanted to do experiments and test them, but truly I was on alpha interferon, and my mother was feeding me the right food. And through her prayer, her faith, and through my faith in God, you know, I was healthy. But then when we moved, we weren't able to access that again. So I had to start taking the antivirals. I took the alpha interferon again, but I didn't have the same results as an adult. Now, I just don't know if I wasn't taking it long enough, or if I had the right doses or strength. But from my experience, that was healing me. And I've heard of other individuals in the Nation of Islam. Well, I don't want to say individuals, but I think there was an individual that it actually took away their virus in totality. And the doctor I was being prescribed this from was brother Dr. Ali Muhammad. And there was another brother at the time, I think I was working with him, Brother Victor, that was, creating the actual, working with the actual supplement. And so I took this years, and I know, but I think it's just, you got to find the right source, because, you know, you have many scientists and individuals this day that say, oh, I got this, I got that. But I know alpha interferon is, now they're saying this can cure, and in Cuba, they use alpha interferon to heal the coronavirus, because the coronavirus has HIV strains inside of it. I think it's like 18 HIV strains or something like that. Of inside of the coronavirus. And so alpha interferon is used to treat the coronavirus as well. But that's definitely known. And your body produces alpha interferons naturally, but when you have HIV, it doesn't produce enough to actually destroy the HIV virus inside of the body. So that's something that I believe is a potential cure. But I in my heart, I truly believe that, you know, us as a people, sickness will not exist even if it did, it will rarely exist if we live the right way and thought the right way, ate the right food, and just, you know, been around, you know, just the environment, you know, a sunny, healthy environment, you know, warm climate, communing with nature. But just think about the environment we live here, from a pandemic and wars within a political party, wars inside of our own community, wars inside of our own household, wars inside of our own minds. So it's hard to heal when you're constantly fighting. You've constantly got your guards up. You're walking to the door of your house in a low income neighborhood and you got your key out ready to enter it because you don't know who's behind you. And so it's hard to heal in that kind of environment. So we just got to free ourselves and free our minds to connect with God.
Mm-hmm. So, Marcus, I got to ask, obviously, you weren't permitted to do a lot of things growing up. What would you say was your most difficult period, whenever your status was made known? Have you ever, had to go through periods of being discriminated against, avoided, ignored, or rejected for being HIV positive? And if so, how did you deal with that situation?
Growing up, not too many individuals knew. Just my mother and my father, and some of my siblings. And I think my mother may have told, it may have been like one or two close family members or believers that she had told when I was really young. And I don't even know if they even remembered from back then. I know when my mother first brought me home, and they may not want to admit it. They told me, one of them told me that some of my family members actually in my household were afraid of me because this is back in 90. Well, she got me in 94. And so AIDS and HIV and AIDS was still pretty hot and popping back then. Like, man, she come home with him, we might get this thing, So like a couple of them kept their distance from me, but my sister said, she wasn't one that was scared of me. My older sister Shanita, she said that when she saw me, she saw my big bubbly eyes and fell in love with me. And one of my other siblings who was a little nervous about me, so he kept his distance, but he said after like a day or two, he said I looked so cute. He couldn't just keep his distance. So everybody just fell in love with me, But it was because of the misunderstanding. They took some courses on it back then as well. But growing up, I would have it in my mind sometimes. Like I knew my mother loved me, but I said, man, I wonder if she thinks differently of me because of this burden that I put upon her plate. So I had times where I thought about that. I had times where I thought about my siblings, like if they looked at me a little different because of that fact. But other than that, not really. When I have shared my story, I feel like when I expressed to the world, there were a lot of individuals that it drew me closer to. My only hope was I didn't want anyone to treat me different. Treat me like the same brother Marcus. You know what I mean? The same cheerful Marcus. I love to dance. Love to laugh and make jokes and help other people laugh and put a smile on their face. I'm not saying, well, don't be sad. This is a time of joy. So it drew some individuals in closer, but then I also noticed that when I shared my story, some people kind of seemed a little more distant than they were before, and I just didn't know if it because they just didn't know. I didn't tell them beforehand, or maybe it made them feel a little uncomfortable, but it is what it is when you're doing works like this that, God is going to grow, help people grow closer to you, and some people may not grow close to you, may grow further away. So that was a little challenging, but I had to rise above emotion because I understand at the end of the day, it's not about really me. I mean, it's about me, but it's really about God and what He's using me for, because I'm just His vessel. You know what I mean? One vessel among millions and millions of them, or billions. And so so I had to overcome that. But I truly just, my goal is to really just inspire people, and educate individuals on not only HIV, and the reality of it, and the truth of it, and end the stigma, but also just the reality of healing, man. It's like, and I've lived this 27 years. I mean, I've had moments where I've breaking down, and I have moments where I'm full of energy and joy and full of life. But brothers will tell you, I remember being 18, 19, 20 years old, and like, what is my purpose? How is God going to use me? How am I going to be cured? Is God really going to cure me? Like, I would believe it, but I'm like, how is it going to happen? You know what I mean? But I had to learn, don't worry about the how. Just worry about the who and what, and then you keep working, and God is going to figure it out.
Right, Marcus. So again, to that point, I know today, you carry this positive winning mindset that motivates so many, but However, talk to us in truth about the sort of evolution of Marcus Muhammad today. You know, the transparent Marcus that says, I haven't always been here. You know, there's been a process. Talk to us a little bit about that, those moments in your life where you didn't feel like the Marcus Muhammad today.
Man, it's definitely been a process. And I say it's still a process. It's like the more I grow, the more knowledge that I've gained or that I gain, the more humble I become, the more that God humbles me. And I will say this, and I don't want to say this out of any to sound vain, but I only say this based off of what others have said about me, close friends, co-workers, my father, my mother, is that I've always had a persistent mindset, and I've always had a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of joy with me. Doesn't mean I didn't have pain. It doesn't mean that I didn't experience adversity and challenges and burden, because I've had my moments. But I always just wanted to live life and live a happy lifestyle. And I always saw myself helping individuals around the world heal from illnesses or experiences that maybe they didn't have any control of, and overcome it and find purpose in it. So I always saw myself doing that, but I just didn't know how. And growing up, sometimes I would have moments I would believe I would be great, but then I would say, well, why would God choose me for? I come from nothing. Why would he choose me?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was judging from the fact that my biological mother, God bless her and I love her. And I'm not upset with her at all. But man, here's a woman, beautiful woman, using drugs, gets pregnant with me, but she's still out on the street using drugs, And then my biological father, have no knowledge of him. Then I would figure out stuff about my grandfather and great grandfather. So, man, it's like everybody I come from, was living a different kind of lifestyle. And so I thought, why would God want to even use me anyway? How can I help people? And I got this disease and I come from all this stuff. Like, people want to hear success, not failures. They want to hear success, not pain. So growing up, I would have moments like that. And then I would have moments like when I would be 19 and 20, like, how am I going to find a cure when I can't even, what was it? How am I going to find a cure when I'm not even a doctor or scientist?
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to find a cure when I can't even really understand what I truly want to do and what kind of doctor or scientist I want to become? Then I go study at school and I'm like, man, this doesn't feel like it's really for me. Like, I want to do it, but I don't like. I love knowledge, but it's like I don't see myself in a lab all day.
Right.
So I had to grow and I had to develop. And so I always had the passion. I always had but I never gave up. That's why I say persistence. I never gave up. I would question God. I had my one-on-one moments, but I never gave up. I kept pushing. I said, some way I'm going to find a way. I kept listening to the Untitled Chapter lectures like Faith in the Building of Will, the power of God to heal the Black man and woman of America. You know what I mean? Fear, faith, and truth. I would listen to these lectures and he would just talk about faith is the evidence of the substance of the faith is the evidence of the unseen, the substance of things hoped for. You know what I mean? And faith is that substance. And how if you believe in something, you have full faith, you can bring it into reality. So I just kept, pushing that on my mind. You know what I mean? Putting weight on that on my mind. Studying him and then learning. Then I had to start learning about the mind and how powerful we are. It means that there's a supreme God, but Jesus says, "Ye are all God, children of the Most High gods," and so we are powerful as well. If we connect with the Most High God, that we can literally see something in our minds and bring it about into reality. And so I started learning about visualizations and the power of the mind and how if you want something and if it's good, that you can bring into reality. If you believe in it, you start going to work. And so with that being said, I started believing if I want to be healed, I'll be healed. If I want to be cured, I'll be cured. I just got to believe in God. I was my wife and I were privileged to meet with the Honorable Mr. Farrakhan, and he confirmed and said I would be healed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so just all these testimonies and, just looking back at the last 27 years of my life through all the experiences, through all the success, the trials, the tribulations, the failures, all of them helped develop me to have the mindset that I do today. But some of it was already here, like I said, but some of it wasn't. Some of it I had to grow. And I'm constantly studying, I'm constantly learning. Because now I just want to, like, I'm not even really concerned about me. Like, in my mind, I'm already healed. I'm already healed. Like, it's really any day now. It could be today, could be tomorrow. But my goal is to now help others heal as well. Because I truly think it starts with the decision. See, we go to these doctors and we go to the nurse, and then I'm not going to sit here and say that doctors aren't needed.
Right.
But are they truly, the ones that we're seeing, are they truly helping us? Is that diabetes you have, do you still have it? You know, the high blood pressure you have, do you still have it? That cancer, is there a cure for the cancer you have? You know what I mean? The heart condition that you have, the brain condition that you have, the HIV that you have, or are they just, hey, take this medication. Here, take this medication.
Right.
And, you know, and sometimes I go and it's like, I feel worse after the examination than I did before. Like, I go there with hopes of me being ill. Oh, you got this. There's no cure for this. Only thing you can do is take medication. There's no hope. The virus always rechanges itself. And that's, I feel like not all doctors, but there are a lot of doctors that have that kind of mindset, as if medication and pharmaceutical is the only pharmacy is the only method, is the only way that one can maintain health. But what are we eating? You know, what kind of meats are we eating? What kind of sugars are we eating? You know, what kind of what are we drinking? What kind of sodas are we drinking? What kind of juice are we drinking? All these things have an impact. But I think the greatest impact isn't just the way we eat, but the way we think. But maybe it's so the way we eat, because the way we eat impacts the way we think. And so you are what you eat.
Right.
So, you know, it's all this is, like I said, developing. Like, I remember having conversations with you know, a good brother of mine, the brother Matthew, and I would he was a brother. Allah is going to lead you to the care, brother. I said, well, how? I'm not a scientist. He said, don't worry about that. How? I said, he said, brother, you were born with HIV. He said, you are alive today, you know. And then when I got married, he said, you got a wife that doesn't have it. He said, you love our people. You love talking. You love science. He said, why would God not want to use you to find a cure? I said, well, how am I going? And I'm like, well, how am I going to do it? I don't know how to do this. He said, brother, we'll go study. Or he said, well, maybe you might not find it. You might find someone else that develops it, and you might be the voice to get people to the care. He said, brother, you cannot understand the knowledge and the wisdom of God. And I kind of, like, in my heart, I believed it, but I'm like, how? Because I'm an overthinker. Anyone I know that I overthink things. So God had to continue to humble me. So don't worry about that. Just focus on me and focus on the mission. So when Moses went to God, and God said, you know, he tried to send Moses to Pharaoh and told him, this is what you say. And he's like, well, he was nervous. Like, well, what do I say? He said, tell him I am that I am. Like, that's what you got to say. He said, and then he asked for his brother, to someone to help him speak, and he gave him Aaron. But he literally, when the guy was like, I don't really know what to say. I don't know what to do. He said, well, just tell him I am that I am. And I think that's one of my messages to individuals, is that sometimes we just got to keep pushing through. You know what I mean? Keep fighting. And we may not have all the answers. God has the answer. And so I had to develop into who I am today by studying, you know, learning, you know, from my mother, you know, learning from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Like I said, who's heavily impacted my life with his works, with his lectures, his books, his example. Meeting him was a blessing. Learning from brothers and sisters in the mosque. There are other brothers and ministers in the mosque who I've, you know, read their books and, you know, heard many of their lectures. You know, reading books like Think and Grow Rich, you know what I mean? As a Man Thinkers, those books were very impactful to me as well. And it made me have the mindset of, because I always wanted the mindset, and I always had the mindset of healing, and I grew up wanting to be a doctor or a scientist. But now I see myself still being a healer, still being a doctor, but it may not be a pharmaceutical doctor. It may not be a physician. It may be a doctor of God using his voice. Jesus was a healer, you know, and I'm not, you know, saying that I'm nowhere near that, but I can accept what he is doing and pattern myself after him and be a mini little healer. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yes.
And by using truth and using love and using wisdom, using energy, using the mind, giving education on how to love yourself, how to treat yourself, how to love God. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan said, you can't love God more than you love yourself, just as you can't love anyone else more than you love yourself, because we really are all extensions of one another. And God, he dwells within us. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And we got to love ourselves. And so, as I continue to learn to love myself and to study myself and to study God, and to desire to help my people and to stop being so hard on myself, trying to think about every little thing, God starts growing me and blessing me and allowing me to understand more.
Mm-hmm. So Marcus, what do you wish other people knew about HIV today that they currently seem to be getting wrong?
So I'll say it like this. A brother, had a conversation with a brother a few weeks ago. His sister reached out to me. She's a sister in the nation. And she had told me that her brother has the virus, has HIV, caught it like 10 years ago. Not too many individuals knew, only she knew and her parents and maybe a couple other people. And she wanted me to talk to him because she felt like, it basically changed his life in a negative way, and it impacted him such a way to where it's shifted his career, shifted his lifestyle. So I'd be honored, to be able to talk to him and to share with him my story. She said, because you're open with it, you're sharing your story, and you're, doing what you believe Allah put you here for, or God put you here for. So I got on the phone with him, and he said some very amazing things to me that I've probably thought about, but I probably didn't put too much attention on before. He said, Marcus, I've had cancer before. And then he mentioned another condition. He said, my family didn't have any problem sharing my story of me having cancer, me having another, I think he said stroke, or he had some kind of seizure or something where he passed. I think it was a seizure. He said they would talk about this to the other family members and share it, which he wasn't mad about it. But he said, but it seems like with the HIV and the AIDS, they don't want to tell nobody about that. It's as if they're afraid and ashamed of it. And he said, my thing is, people have this stigma. Like, if you got it, it's like they don't want nothing to do with you. They don't want to be around you. Like, and there are many individuals that have it. And I'll show you that anyone that gets cancer, I mean, I'm not saying they're going to go to, he was saying, I'm not saying they're going to go to everybody, but they're okay with opening up about that.
Right.
They're okay with opening up about asthma, high blood pressure, or having a stroke, having a seizure, having some kind of heart condition, if somebody asks. But it's like when it comes to HIV, it's like, oh, we ain't dealing with that. And so he's like, even though it's not as bad as it was 20, 30 years ago, there's still that stigma. And I thought about it, and it made sense, because most people don't go around talking about, hey, I'm HIV positive. I'm not saying even if they did, it would do that, but it's like, it's the disease that nobody wants to really talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And even before I announced that I had it, I kind of knew that, but I didn't really put too much thought into it. I didn't really compare it to the fact that there are so many other diseases that people can bring up in an open conversation. But when it comes to HIV and AIDS, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I ain't telling nobody that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really a stigma, and it's really understanding of it, miseducation, because I can see being cautious about sharing it with somebody that you are looking to engage into a relationship with, because then you have to really make sure your viral load's undetectable, and you got to make sure they understand that if we do this, I do have this disease, but it's most likely not passable if my viral load is this. So you got to go through. So I can understand that barrier, because it does spread like that. But I'm talking about people on a normal level, family and friends. I don't even want to share with this person because I'm afraid of what they might think.
Right.
And we have to remove the stigma, and then we have to educate individuals, and then we have to elevate the mindset of not only individuals that are miseducated, but elevate the mindset of those that have HIV or AIDS, because they're really destroying themselves
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
by not sharing it. Or I'm not saying you have to share it, but to feel like you have to hide it, or to feel like it's a curse. That's really not good to the soul, and it's really not good to the body.
Mm-hmm.
And one can't expect to heal if they're walking in secrecy.
Absolutely.
And so my goal is not only to uplift individuals' mind, uplift their spirit, uplift their faith, change the stigma, change the education, the way we eat, the way we think, but also to free individuals, whether it's HIV or whether it's some other disease or burden, that they have experienced. It could be an experience that they've dealt with years ago, and they don't want to share it because they are afraid of what the other people may think. My mind is I don't care. I'm not gonna say I don't care because I have a care because I'm trying to help people. But it truly doesn't really concern me of what other people think. So the only person that has the power over me is God, and I want other individuals to understand that, to stop allowing this disease to keep them under a shell. You know what I mean, and to keep them in hiding. And then other individuals have to know that one, HIV is really even in sexual intercourse, it's really not spread like that. Even if someone's viral load is high, if that person is taking care of themselves and if there's no STD involved. But one, people have to learn that, you just got to use protection. You know what I mean? Like, we can't just be going around here doing these activities with individuals that we barely know. We have to, if you are going to engage into that, make sure that you all are safe. And one, if you do have it, you're with somebody, you need to share your condition with the person. Now, if you're undetectable, now the law is if you're undetectable and you're using, protection, you're fine. You know what I mean? Or as long as you're using protection, like there's a law, as long as you're using protection, it can't pass if you're using, a condom. Like, or it's very, very, very unlikely. But if you're undetectable, there's also a law, I think, that protects people to where they don't have to share. But to me, I just think it's, if you're going to go that far to those things, you just should share. And obviously, in the nation, we're not engaged into those activities anyway, unless we're married. And if you're going to marry somebody, I hope they will know this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just to the audience that are listening to this, if you have HIV, if you have AIDS, don't be afraid of it. If you want to share with somebody, share with somebody. You know what I mean? And if they are, judgmental of you, just make sure you educate them. But if they're judgmental of you and don't want to be around you, then they're lost. You know what I mean? You got to move forward. You got to sin. You can't allow other people to hold you back.
Absolutely.
So that's just kind of my thing. It's just education and taking care of yourself.
Absolutely. So, Mark, let's shift a little bit to the book. And again, congratulations on the release this Friday, Transforming Pain to Purpose, Thriving with HIV. So what was your inspiration for the book, but more specifically, what did you hope to gain?
So, and I don't want to say this, and in my apologies. So the ebook is releasing tomorrow or 12 a.m. tonight, but the paperback copy is out today. I attempted to do a pre-order, but I wasn't aware that Amazon doesn't do pre-orders with paperback. It's just whenever it's ready to be published, it's published. And I submitted it yesterday. I was thinking it'll be ready on Friday, and it's ready today. So the paperback is ready on Amazon. And I also I also have a link probably in a couple of weeks to where individuals can order directly from me, but I'm still awaiting my physical copies. So the inspiration behind this book. So my goal was I would like to reach thousands, if not millions, with this book, to share an inspirational story of the power of God, the power of God's healing, the planning of God, the love of my mother, and just my faith in me facing my adversity and overcoming the trials with God's help that I had overcame. And I wanted to share the story to help to inspire individuals all over the world that may have HIV, that may be dealing with something that is challenging to them, or some kind of trial, or facing an adversity, or may have had something that happened to them years ago that was out of their control, and they feel some type of way, or they feel insecure about it, or something that they don't want to share, or something that they feel like they can't overcome. And I started thinking, pain, sometimes we think that pain is a burden. Pain can actually be a blessing. You can actually transform your pain to purpose. So I was thinking of something from pain, and how HIV to me was painful. I didn't ask for this.
Right.
I didn't want a disease that I had to be taking medicine for my whole life for, because that's why I thought growing up I have to take medicine my whole life. The disease that I possibly, back then, they didn't think that I would have children. So it was possible that I could have children with this disease. So that was, I didn't want that. However, I knew that I could not go back and change the past. The only thing I could do is focus on the present and change and alter the future. And so this book was just, and it's not my whole story, but it gives individuals the insight and takes individuals on a large portion of my story growing up, because my journey is still unfolding itself.
Mm.
And it gives them about, me being born, and it's just about the mindset I had as a child, my experiences as a child, my experiences as a teenager, my experiences as an adult, and how some of the adversity I had to overcome, and some of the friendships I had, the relationships I have, even some of the trials my mother had to overcome. But it also talks about how God works, because there were certain things in my story that nobody could explain. Like the fact that I'm even alive today is just a testimony, because the doctors said that I only will live 12 to 13 years. And you'll find that in my book, and I talk about more into the story about how just me being alive today, it testifies the power of God, and how when we're going through painful experiences, just keep facing the adversity, keep relying on God, keep believing in yourself and pushing, because though it's painful, it's only temporary. And though we may not see it, God is working on your behalf. And then when he's working on your behalf and you're with him and he's with you, there's nothing that you can't overcome. And now looking back, just hearing stuff from my aunt, hearing stuff from my mother, from my wife, and just the conversation that I would have, I was like, man, God was literally working the whole time. I may have not have saw it when I was, laying on top of my bed and, having my nights where I would be, tearing up. But God was working. When I would talk to God as a child, he heard me. And so my goal is to reach other individuals, to allow them that don't allow the pain that they are going through or the pain that they have gone through to hold them back. Don't live in the past. No, take the pain and turn it and transform it to purpose. Thrive with it. You know what I mean? Overcome it, because every baby that's born into this world, the mother and the baby have to endure pain. When a caterpillar has to evolve to a butterfly, when it's in a chrysalis or in a metamorphic stage, it has to endure pain. Every transformation and evolution in the universe, whether it's an animal, whether it's an insect, has to endure pain. It's on the back of my books, it talks about who are we. We're called the glory of God. We're so great, right? Because God made us great. You think we're not going to experience pain and adversity?
Right.
So I share this to share that just because we're going through so much doesn't mean that we have to continue to go through that. Doesn't mean that balance what our life's supposed to be like, that we're going to be based off the things that happen. We can't control what happened to us as a child, but when we turn a certain age, we can start having certain kind of control of our life. And some of us live our life thinking that there's some outside force or some one man in the universe saying, all right, I'm going to plan his whole life out there. Now, there is a powerful being there, but there's a powerful being inside you as well. And if you all connect with each other, you can be cause over your own life. You can live as long as you choose to live the way you eat. But if you're sad and you're not happy with yourself and you're going to take drugs, you know what I mean, or you're going to do things to yourself, then now you're destroying yourself. You're destroying your being. You're destroying your body. So now you don't have much of a fighting chance. But if you give yourself a fighting chance, you can prevail. You can prevail against Satan. You can prevail against pain. You can prevail against the lower desires, or the things or the burdens that's going to hold you back. So that's what my book is about. It just basically talks about transformation, evolution, overcoming pain, transforming it into purpose. How God saved me from HIV. I was born with it. Doctor said I was going to die. The things my mother did, me growing up with it. How I wanted to be a healer, and how now I'm walking into my purpose. How my story of how I got married and how I had children without it. So and what I hope to accomplish, like I said, is to reach people. And I also will hope to be able to use this as a vehicle to where it can help free me up more, so that I can write more books, or I can do more podcasts, or I can speak at more events, to where I can now reach people more on a global scale as this story unfolds. Because I believe that this story, along with other stories, can heal individuals.
Absolutely. So, Marcus, I truly believe it's a wonderful book of resilience, and there will be many individuals blessed as a result of the book. And I truly wish you all the success on the publishing of your book. Marcus, I always say that a huge part of this show is about, positive winning mindsets, about being resilient and demonstrating, that mental toughness and learning to face adversity, all while continuing to transform and transition and lead a life where you are called to live, becoming your very best. And you spoke about all of that. And so, we truly bring guests to this show that truly embodies what this show is all about. And you, my friend, certainly embodies all that and are certainly a major source of inspiration. And I truly wish you the best, and I salute you, sir.
Thank you. I'm very, very honored, and I appreciate all your kind words. Much love to you and everything that you are doing, which is the works of God. And I'm deeply honored, and I just pray that God can continue to use me. Like I said, all praise belongs to God, and I'm just pray that He can continue to use me to help heal and inspire others, and that hopefully I can be a positive inspiration to others as well, and they can change their life for the better. So peace, and I appreciate this. You opening up your podcast.
Absolutely. So again, Marcus, before we go, tell us again a little bit about how we can purchase your book, how to connect with you either online or through social media. And again, just connect with some of the things you're doing.
Yes, sir. Thank you for asking again. So my Facebook is Marcus Muhammad. That's Marcus, Marcus Muhammad. And I have a suit on, so you'll see me when I pop up. And my Instagram is Marcus Muhammad 7. So Marcus Muhammad 7. I have a Instagram link. I have a link on my Instagram page where you can click on the link and it'll say my Transforming Pain to Purpose. You can click there. You can buy it'll take you right to Amazon. You can get the book from there, or you can go directly to Amazon and type in the name, and it should pop up: Transforming Pain to Purpose, Thriving with HIV. So you can follow me on those two platforms. In a couple of weeks, I'm waiting on some physical copies. In a couple of weeks, I'll be offering. If you want to go directly through me and not Amazon, you can do that as well. You'll save a few dollars as well. But right now, it is paperback, and it's also the ebook will be dropped tomorrow. I also have a Facebook page, which was just developed because I'm just starting a company called The Hive, which stands for healing. It stands for heal, inspire, value, basically teaching the value of oneself and elevating us into a new level of consciousness, to a new mind, The Hive. And I got that name because, honey has healing properties. And in the Quran, there's a surah called the bee. And also HIV is in the hive. So HIV was the foundation of me finding. So the HIV is capitalized. So there's a Facebook page called The Hive because it's just starting it. But I'll be, on all my social medias, on my Facebook and my Instagram, I'm going to I strive to drop motivational content, educational content on, healing, inspiration, elevating our minds on the value of ourselves, the value of eating the proper foods, just getting our minds to the right level each day. Eating the proper foods. I'm gonna have my books and stuff there. So I do that, a lot of content on my social medias as well.
Wonderful. Again, Marcus, thank you once again for joining us today. And it has certainly been a pleasure. And please come back and check on us real soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you. May God continue to bless you. Peace.
We certainly hope that you enjoyed today's episode. So make sure to join our Facebook group, Out Front with Vince Noble. And don't forget to comment, rate, share, and subscribe on the Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to download your podcast. Until next time, remember, you still get to write your own life story.